Cathy Hughes's life didn't begin in a boardroom or a radio studio. It began in 1947, Omaha, Nebraska, in a part of the city where community was the greatest asset and the greatest teacher. Her given name was Catherine Elizabeth Woods. Her family lived in the Logan Fontanelle housing projects, a cluster of modest brick buildings tucked into Omaha's near north side. The area was segregated and under-resourced, but it pulsed with Black culture, strong families, and entrepreneurial spirit. Neighbors looked out for each other. Kids ran between units as if the entire project was one extended home. Her father, William Alfred Woods, was working towards something that had never been done at Creighton University, becoming the first African American to graduate with an accounting degree. He studied late into the night. Cathy watched him turn discipline into hope and hope into upward mobility, one exam at a time. Her mother, Helen Jones Woods, brought a different kind of legacy. Before Cathy was born, her mother Helen had toured the country as a trombonist with the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, an all-women, racially integrated jazz band that broke barriers in the 1930s and 40s. These were women who played in smoky clubs and packed concert halls, dazzling audiences with big band brass and rhythmic precision. Helen was part of that lineage. Music lived in her bones. Her childhood wasn't defined by music alone. It very much included a neighborhood where everyone helped rear everyone else. The near north side where she grew up held Black-owned drugstores, beauty shops, cafes, and theaters. It hosted youth clubs, NAACP meetings, and community events. Cathy once said that in her home, we didn't have to wait for February to hear about Black history. We were told of great Black accomplishments on a regular basis. That is a powerful environment for a child, a place where greatness is not distant, but expected. Her mother reinforced that message through action. On Sundays, Helen often visited local orphanages and brought children home for dinner. This wasn't performance. It wasn't charity for applause. It was simply what was done in a community where scarcity didn't cancel generosity. Cathy later remembered that one chicken was already feeding 6, and her mother still found room at the table. Those dinners taught a lesson that shaped Cathy's leadership philosophy. Success is not the moment you start giving back. Success is the moment you realize giving back is not optional. By the time Cathy was 14, she understood the realities of working-class life. So, she lied about her age to get her first job. It wasn't rebelliousness, it was responsibility. She wanted to contribute. She wanted stability. And like most adults who start adulting too early, she developed a thick layer of grit long before she developed a resume. As she moved into her teenage years, activism joined her environment. Omaha in the 1960s was rife with tension, protest, and the rising energy of civil rights organizing. Cathy joined the youth chapter of the NAACP. She learned about collective voice, strategic pressure, and the importance of representation. She learned that community wasn't just a place, it was a platform. But then came the chapter that could have ended everything. Cathy became pregnant as a teenager, at age 16. For many young women of her generation, teenage pregnancy brought a cascade of penalties: social punishment, financial risk, reduced opportunity, family rupture. And Cathy experienced some of that rupture. Her mother put her out of the house when the news broke. It was a moment of profound loss, but it became, in Cathy's own words, the beginning. When her son Alfred was born, she made a private promise. He would not become a statistic, and she would not let this hardship define her. That private promise turned into fuel for ambition, fuel for discipline, fuel for the kind of persistence that makes a broadcaster sleep on the floor of her station years later just to keep it alive. So let's check in on the context here. Before the company, before the equity valuations, there was a young mother learning to navigate the world with limited resources yet unlimited determination. She got it from her mama and dad. Her entry into media wasn't glamorous. She took a job at the Omaha Star, a Black-owned weekly newspaper. There, she witnessed the mechanics of storytelling: interviews, deadlines, typesetting, layout, the rhythm of community journalism. She saw how Black media fought misinformation, documented local lives, and offered dignity where mainstream outlets offered erasure. From the Omaha Star, Cathy moved into radio at KOWH, a station serving the city's Black community. Radio was different. Radio reached people in real time. Radio carried emotion. Radio shaped mood, morning routines, public opinion. Cathy felt something shift. A microphone wasn't just a tool, it was an amplifier for hidden talent, hidden stories, hidden brilliance. This discovery would eventually lead her to Washington, D.C., to Howard University's WHUR-FM, where she helped create the iconic Quiet Storm format. Those achievements belong to her later chapters. Her early story, the one you're hearing now, is about how environment shapes ambition, how hardship shapes resilience, how community shapes purpose, how sound shapes a future broadcaster. It is the story of a girl in the projects listening to records by Lamplight, a teenager navigating activism, a young mother holding her child and making a private vow, a newsroom apprentice learning the stakes of representation, a radio novice discovering the emotional architecture of storytelling. This is where Cathy Hughes's talent began, not in wealth, not in access, not in privilege. Her talent was shaped by music, community, responsibility, and a fierce refusal to let circumstances determine destiny. Eventually, that hidden talent became her legacy, a media empire amplifying millions of Black voices across the United States. A new definition of what leadership looks, sounds, and feels like. A lifelong reminder that brilliance can come from any neighborhood and any hardship, as long as someone is listening. Around 1980, she founded Radio 1 in Washington, D.C. with her husband. She revamped the station to a 24-hour talk radio format themed Information is Power. She hosted the morning show for 11 years. Radio 1 went on to own 70 radio stations in 9 major markets in the U.S. Then she bought radio station WMMJ, and in 1995, WKYS Radio. Radio 1 soon after became publicly traded on the NASDAQ stock exchange. A few years prior, back in 1990, Cathy met Nelson Mandela. He was visiting the U.S. shortly after his release from prison to discuss civil rights. Ms. Cathy highlighted the importance of media in advocating for social justice and civil rights. She stayed on message, didn't she? In 2004, Radio 1 launched a national cable and satellite television network called TV One. It is also a minority owner of BET, Black Entertainment Television Industries. Let's fast forward to 2015. Radio 1 was number 9 on BET 100 with a net worth of $450.8 million. Cathy even got a street in her name. Cathy Hughes Corner is at 4th and H Street in Northeast D.C. This dynamo was inducted into the Hall of Fame for National Rhythm and Blues, as well as the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. She was the first woman awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award. She has more, as you can imagine. And she's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Let us close with Ms. Hughes' own words. Not to let anyone convince you that your dream, your vision to be an entrepreneur, is something that you shouldn't do. What often happens is that people who are well-meaning, who really care for us, are afraid for us and talk us out of it. In the spirit of the iconic Cathy Hughes, we encourage you to dream, believe in your dreams, act on your dreams.